This is HMS Broadsword, a Type 22 frigate. One of the newest class of ships in the Royal Navy, it was the first to be built with only guided weapons as its main armament. Although as a result of experience gained in the Falkland Islands, later versions will also carry a 4.5 gun. It's equipped with both Sea-Wolf close-range air defense missiles and the Surface Exocet medium-range anti-ship missile. It has a crew of over 200. Every officer branch is represented among the 20 officers on board, and it'll usually carry up to 4 junior officers under training as well. Every officer under training will stand watchers on the bridge. Many will eventually get a bridge watch-keeping certificate. But it's the first priority for a seaman officer, because once he has it, he will keep watch on the bridge on his own.
Bridge, you've got the contact bearing 324.
Just got now, sir, stand by report.
Roger.
He's on a course of 185, speed 5 knots, CPA 5 cables, bearing at 240, track 347.
Roger, report.
Captain Broadsword.
Captain.
Sir, at green 05, range 6 miles, there's a small fishing vessel. On his port bow, sir, his bearing is drawing slowly left and he has a CPA of 5 cables to port. I'd like to maintain this course, sir, and reassess his CPA at 2 miles.
Yes, please.
All right, sir.
Any seaman must learn how to navigate so that he always knows where the ship is by day or night. These days, most ships will be fitted with satellite navigation systems that give an immediate printout of position. Nonetheless, every seaman officer must still be an expert with the traditional tools of the trade, the sextant and the chart. Later in his service, he could specialize as a hydrographer and actually make the charts that other seamen use. Going to sea is not just another job, it's a way of life. And it's a way of life which is demanding, exciting, and sometimes dangerous. All seamen will specialize as principal warfare officers, and here at HMS Dryad, during their basic training, in a small cubicle attached to one of the most advanced computer-controlled simulators in the world, young seamen officers are learning how to fight their ship in battle.
Missile splash, good.
Every order they give is fed back into the computer, which is in itself controlled by a team of highly experienced operators representing all facets of a developing battle.
Well, the submarine, so start doing step sides.
Right, okay, just bear that in mind. Otherwise, when the report comes in, you'll be caught, and things will happen much slower than they should.
Right, sir.
This is Romeo 5, Mike, Roger, Port 175.
This is Delta 3 Hotel. Stand by.
What's the range there?
323.
Execute.
Right, so I want to launch the helo and then get 341 to...
Right, well, let's get it there. Remember, we've got an air attack coming in.
Extra's just engaged the missile with her CDAR.
Okay, hang on, anyway, we're just going to launch our helo, okay?
Well, that won't affect the missile. If you don't take these missiles out with your own missiles, you'll never launch anything.
Alpha 7 Whiskey. This is Echo 5 Tango. Expect missile attack bearing 310.
This is X-ray 4 Romeo, Roger, starboard 120.
Track 340. Update that reference point 070. What was the range on that?
P1, we now have 5 unknown
range 80
hostiles
again.
bearing 310, range 60.
Have you reminded the officer watch to carry a narrow weave on all courses?
No,
That's what you do. We'll get torpedoed before we get in the vicinity of the...
Okay, tell the officer watch to carry a narrow weave. Base 4000.
The Royal Navy is a blue water navy, and its ships are able to operate in every ocean in the world. They'll stay at sea for months on end if necessary, taking on board fuel and supplies while at sea. The Royal Navy leads the world in the techniques it has developed for this. Here, Broadsword is taking on fuel in the extreme conditions of a full gale in the North Atlantic. Few other navies in the world would even attempt to do this in conditions as severe as these. And the officer of the watch responsible for maintaining course, speed and position during the whole maneuver is a 20-year-old sub-lieutenant still under training. It's a very skillful operation, but provided everyone does their job properly and works together as a team, it's all perfectly feasible. And it's done at night, too. Seamen can also train as air crew, either as pilots or observers, but most Fleet Air Arm officers will join on a short-term flying engagement. The helicopter at sea is far more than just a pair of airborne eyes. It's one of the ship's principal weapon systems. It can be used for a whole variety of tasks, including for launching anti-ship missiles, and armed with torpedoes, it's the ship's main anti-submarine weapon. The helicopters that operate from Broadsword are the Lynx, the best deck landing helicopter in service in any navy today. They have an operational crew of 2, a pilot and an observer. There are many opportunities to fly Navy. A bigger helicopter, the Sea King, with an operational crew of 4, will operate from a carrier or even from the deck of a specially converted merchant ship. It has a primary anti-submarine role. The current fixed-wing aircraft in use at sea is the Sea Harrier, which operates from the Invincible-class aircraft carriers. These are the first ships to be fitted with the ski jump, a British development which enables the aircraft to take off with an increased payload. The Sea Harrier is designed primarily for defence against enemy aircraft, but it's also capable of attacking targets both at sea and on land. Of the 3 different categories of engineers in the Royal Navy, the aeronautical engineer will only be based either on an aircraft carrier at sea or at a naval air station ashore, but every ship will have both marine and weapon engineers on board. The marine engineer is responsible for the ship's hull, propulsion machinery, power generation, and the basic support systems of heat, light, water supply, and refrigeration. These days, the main propulsion unit of a ship will be gas turbine. 2 Olympus turbines, which are marine versions of the same engines that power Concorde, and 2 secondary Tyne turbines.
See underneath? Yeah, I can see the leakage. How long has it been like that? Well, we better go.
As a result of the sort of decision the marine engineer may take, it could be necessary to change a complete engine. Because turbines are so compact, that's a job which can be done these days in less than 24 hours. It's even been done underway at sea, and that is a very tricky operation. The weapon engineer is responsible for all communication and weapon systems on board. He's an expert both in computers and electronics, and his training is probably the most technically demanding of all.
Yes, starboard tube, sir. Ropes, setting 3.
5 Echo uniform, range 7-2, expiry time at minute 2-4.
Action AO, intentions on completion my Cobra attack. Leander closes for Ringer attack.
When the ship is in action, his place will be in the operations room, where he can monitor every situation that's developing, control weapon availability, and advise the captain.
Limitations on turning are not more than port or starboard 10 degrees. Captain, we need to reprogram case. We've got a corruption in the operational program, Captain.
After general naval training at sea, all engineer officers will read for a degree, and most will do this at Manadon, the Navy's own college in Plymouth. For the first 2 years, they'll study very widely indeed, working with subjects as diverse as materials analysis to building a working Stirling engine on a laboratory bench. This could be an alternative power source of the future. They'll then begin to specialize in one of the three main engineering disciplines, and later in their service, if they wish, they may return here to take a master's degree or to prepare for a doctorate. Royal Navy engineering is very broadly based. It has a far greater variety of engineering expertise than any other organization in Europe.
We want to check all our pressure and temperature gauges. Okay, lube all pressure to the journal bearings. That's up to 50 odd. If you adjust on that one, what we're trying to do is get a wisp of steam coming out of both vents. We leave it blowing on that one anyway. And what we're doing is trying to...
One important difference about naval engineers is that they are systems oriented. They will study across several disciplines and understand a system as a whole, not just one aspect of it. Here, young air engineers are having their first introduction to a working aircraft.
We're on this sort of intercom system, which for people not familiar with freight mics or other live mics is fairly disconcerting. You have to be very specific when you're talking technical terms and figures, just backwards and forwards between crew and might well be...
Many naval engineers at some stage in their service will become involved in a systems design project in association with some part of a defense-related industry which actually makes the equipment. Most of the academic staff at Manadon are serving naval officers in the instructor branch. They will have taken their university degrees before they join the Navy, and they too will have done their general naval training at sea. Principally, they join the Navy to teach, but their students could range from newly joined ratings to technical officers reading for a master's degree. In HMS Broadsword, the instructor officer is one of the bridge watchkeeping officers. He also takes oceanographic observations of the drift and set of ocean currents, water salinity and temperature variations, studies which are of great importance these days for the accurate performance of underwater weapon systems. He's also responsible for weather forecasting on board and for the helicopter crew. That is a particularly important role.
Mixed in with them with this very cold air that we're getting.
The freezing level's 1,000 feet. So in fact we won't see any of this cold air behind the cold front.
He'll probably be one of the flight deck controllers too. But the principal flight deck controller in Broadsword is one of the supply officers. When not controlling the flight deck, he's accountable for stores and administration. This means that he's responsible for arranging the resupply of everything, from fresh stores for the caterers to a new turbine for the engine room, and urgently if necessary. He's the ship's hotelier, bursar, legal advisor and banker, and is sometimes responsible for very large sums of money.
He sees me at red 30, sir. He's on a steady bearing. I'd like to order course 30 degrees to starboard, sir, to open his CPH port.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And in fact there's his draft order.
And he's going where?
He's also the captain's secretary and as such runs the ship's office and controls all personnel records and pay.
Examination in Portsmouth
for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons. So we'll just have to wait until the next opportunity.
The last officer branch is medical, both doctors and dentists. The doctor in Broadsword, here involved in a damage control exercise, was trained at St Thomas's Hospital in London, which is acknowledged as one of the finest doctors' training hospitals in the world. This is his second job in the Navy. His first was with the Royal Marines at the Commando Training Centre in Devon. So he's also a trained commando, which stands him in good stead because he must be ready to operate from a helicopter onto the deck of any ship, anywhere, at any time. He's also working for his bridge watchkeeping certificate. Broadsword will be at sea for well over 8 months in any year. In February of this particular year, she was in Florida. A month later, she was exercising with other NATO ships to the north of Norway. And by the end of April, she was heading south to the Antarctic, quite literally at the other end of the world. 3 months later, on the return voyage, they'll be stopping off for a week in Barbados. And a few more days in Antigua in the Windward Islands. Later, they'll be calling in at Gibraltar too. There's nothing unusual about Broadsword. She's typical of many other Royal Navy ships and submarines. And always at sea, even in weather conditions like this, everyone on board will be training and exercising. Anti-submarine tactics, countering air attacks, surface engagements and evasion, electronic surveillance and countermeasures, and emergency drills, man overboard, damage control, fire.
Yeah, stay there. Alright, we've got a dresser, we've got a spare hand for the dresser.
Form the fire boundary, smoke boundary. Hatch above the galley is shut.
Come on then, make your entry.
Under by hand. All right. All the way open.
Ships of the Royal Navy are often required to help other ships in distress. Every young officer will learn how to fight fire at sea, which, until you do learn how to fight it, is very frightening.
Fire, fire, fire!
At the Royal Navy's firefighting school in Portsmouth, he will be taught not only how to control the fire, but also how to control the firefighting party as well. The lesson he learns here may one day save a ship, or maybe his life and the lives of his sailors. He will learn how to control damage too. Again, this is very important. It's wet and it does have its amusing moments. But the lessons being learned are very real and may one day be vital. Like every other ship, Broadsword carries its own divers, and one of the young officers on board will be diver trained. Their main role is to ensure that the outside of the hull and the propellers can be cleared if necessary, and that the entire ship's bottom can be searched. Again, they'll be trained in Portsmouth, and they could later go on to become specialist clearance divers. After initial training, officers from all branches can volunteer to join submarines. The main submarine training base is at HMS Dolphin in Gosport, just across the harbour from Portsmouth. Here, a volunteer will undergo very intensive specialist training. And once he is trained, he may well then stay in submarines for the rest of his service.
Range overall. That. Down.
Winding in 600 yards. Target's course 198.
Up, look at the target.
Should be red 115.
Range overall. Flat. 9 minutes.
True bearing 048.
Range 4,300 yards. What's my distance off track? Past it. He's opening, yes? Yes. Good. TCC, try target speed 10 knots.
Try 10 knots. 10 knots set.
I said try 10 knots.
Roger.
TCC trying 10 knots. Set when the captain tells you to set.
TCC trying 10 knots.
Cancer AC.
Target's course 138.
Don't interrupt the setup drill, you horrible officer. Say again.
Target's course 138.
138, roger.
Target coming straight towards.
Okay, stand by market attack. Use 4 torpedoes, 1 hit required, good solution, sea height 7 feet. TCC, time bearing plot, LOP, stand by, target, set up.
Should be red 106.
Up, check, firing, bearing.
Should be red 12.
Bearing, that.
Red 30.
Fire. Down.
But whatever branch he joins, or whether he serves in submarines, as aircrew, or on board a ship like Broadsword, first and foremost he will be an officer in the Royal Navy. And his way of life will be the way of life of leading and of responsibility at sea.